Hello and welcome to the Fourth Tier Fever podcast. It's been a while for me, but I'm back. It's almost the end of the season now. We've got the playoffs on the horizon, but we just want to say thank you for all the support on the channel. Please keep supporting it. We are going to be putting out content whenever we can throughout the off season, covering as much as we possibly can on YouTube and all social media platforms. So please still send that love. We are trying to grow that follow count even more. But today, let's have a look at the episode.
I'd rather we didn't. to be quite honest, we've got to get this done sooner rather than later. Hello, you're hearing my voice. Yeah. You've heard Jack's. I'm back from the. I wasn't on the last pod. So there were some lovely words from Kieran from it. I've got to say. But no, the other pod did all right. But we're not here to look at that or to react to that. We're here to react to our League Two predictions. We've got to do it sooner rather than later. We've got Jack with us. I know you've just heard it for the call to action, but how are you anyway?
I'm all right. I think we've had a fairly comfortable last game of the season. We're 20th. Who would have thought we would be 20th at 5 games ago? We were tempted for relegation, but comfortably stayed up. It's fine now. And a few months of meltdown to come still. You've got the transfers, you've got managers, whoever we appoint, and then also a takeover potentially too. So there's a crazy few months to go still.
Meltdowns, our fan bases certainly know that. Right, okay, predictions. Now, if you can remember, for somewhat long-term viewers, it was me, Luke, Kieran, and Jake. We put together our 1 to 24. We did it pretty much together, and then what we did was we put it all together as like an average position of where those teams. Obviously, Jack has come on a bit later, so it's not quite a part of this. But what we will do once we go through these teams, he'll signify where he put those teams, and he'll probably give a short reasoning for it. We do have a graphic from his in which we'll probably or will display at the end of this, but. 1 to 24. We did have a quick look before we started filming for the FTF side of things. I say that like you're not a part of it. You are. But just
I wasn't at the time. At the
time, yeah. What a little bit of January recruitment can do. Even though it was a little bit before that. But we had a look at them, and they're actually not as bad as I actually thought there was. There's one or two. There's quite a few in which were correct. There's quite a few that are really 1 or 2 off. There's a couple of stinkers, don't get me wrong, and I think that's probably what you're all interested in. But it's not as bad as what I've certainly seen. I've seen much worse.
You've seen mine.
I've seen yours. Yeah, I think for some of yours, you've got some explaining to do. I think more so than what we've got.
Definitely.
Yeah. Of course, in an ideal world, we would have liked the others to have joined in for that, see their reactions. But, oh well. It's good to get a different perspective as well with Jack. Right, that's enough blabbering on. Let's get straight into it. One, I don't think we need to dwell on too much. Morecambe, we all predicted them to finish 24th. Their average position was 24th. They finished 24th. You didn't know. You didn't predict him 24th, did you?
No.
I remember that from looking at one straight away.
Yeah. So I put them 21st. It's still in that relegation battle. I think looking at the league table at the start of the season, I personally thought it was hard to say who was going to go down. I think you're looking at all the different teams. I thought Morecambe, you can rely on Derek Adams. I think the squad wasn't good enough. It was National League players, and that's no discredit to them. They were in the National League and then bumped up to League Two and signed for Morecambe. And so I just didn't feel the quality was there. But still, I thought if there was going to be a manager to get you through a relegation battle at Morecambe, it will be Derek Adams. That is just as simple as that. And so I thought he might do it. I think there's a couple other managers that we'll come on to that are maybe more inexperienced. I didn't quite know what to expect, and so I took a risk. I thought the experience of Derek Adams at Morecambe might get them over the line, but clearly not.
Yeah, I think compared to some of the others we were having a chat before that, I can understand it for this one. I always thought there was always up against it. I remember when they brought in those 15 signings, there was very few, 2, 3 at the absolute most, in which I've gone, oh, that's a decent signing on paper. But I always thought there was up against it. We all know their off-field issues. Derek Adams is a man. If there was one person that was going to get them out of it, is Derek Adams, and I fully understand that argument. I just thought, as I said, I always thought there was up against it. I think probably the surprise was, it took them. They took it quite. That was it, the 43rd, 44th game.
Yeah.
They took it quite late, which was actually a lot closer than what I thought. I thought they'd have been gone a little bit of time.
I thought
that, but I just couldn't not see them go down at the start of the season, and it's proved correct.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that sort of relegation battle, I think, as well. I mean, us as a Tranmere fan, so we never touched that relegation zone throughout the season, and you know how poor we've been, and how much we struggled, especially in the sort of middle of the season. So for us to not even get into that relegation zone once, it sort of shows the quality of those bottom two. And as much as I've said, Derek Adams would have been the only one to get them out of that relegation battle. They were probably fighting for more than they could. And it was sort of destined from the start. I had that hope. I thought it would be a nice story if they could sort of survive with everything behind the scenes as well. But I think we all knew it was going to be a struggle, and ultimately they were close until the last few games, but I don't think they had much hope.
Yeah, like I said, it was one I understood, but I always thought there was always going to be too much to do just in their current state. And ultimately, they haven't been good enough. They just haven't been good enough, unfortunately, and hence why they've dropped down to the National League. And we're starting off with a correct prediction, which is a good thing. 23rd, Accrington Stanley, not far off this one. They actually finished 21st. Yeah, I should probably get a table. Yeah, 21st. So just outside the relegation zone. If we're looking at it on there, Jake got it correct with 21st. It's a good prediction. It's a good prediction. It's there or thereabouts what we'd have thought. When you had them bottom, didn't you?
Yeah, I had them 24th, and I think, I mean, you look at them, you've got a slightly inexperienced manager there, and I just didn't. I mean, after John Coleman left, I didn't have hope for them. I think that was the wrong decision to let him go, and I struggled to see a way out for Accrington after that. And I'll be honest, I still do. I think it's been, I think we've all talked about it, it's been one of the poorest League Twos in a long time, top to bottom as well. And for an Accrington side to survive, I thought they did well against us. They've got some really good players, but I think they're going to be in trouble next season, especially with everything off the pitch as well going on at the moment, at the end of the season. But I think getting rid of John Coleman was the sort of start of that slide down, and I just didn't think they'd have any momentum this season, and I didn't think the manager would last. But he has. But I don't see a way out next season either.
Yeah, I think you look at it's just not a bad prediction all around. It's where we expected them to be. They obviously have survived, but it's still pretty much in that ballpark of what we did expect. John Dolan was very much a bit of an unknown. They have survived this season, but again, I think it's I think again they'll be up against it next year. Whether they can do it again, there's a big summer ahead. There's a positions have got to improve on. They have picked up some good wins this season at times, and they have they've scored quite a few goals. To be fair to him, they've had some decent performances which have done enough to keep them up. But yeah, there's always still that question mark with them, and they'll probably be tipped to probably go down again, or at least be in that relegation battle again. Again, I don't really. Yeah, it's not a bad prediction at all. It's where we expected them to be, and that's where they've ended up. Newport 22nd. This one's actually a correct prediction, of course, with that defeat to Tranmere on the final day. Has put them there, and as you can see from what Luke, myself, and Jake predicted. I mean, Luke and Jake predicted 22nd. That's a correct prediction. I had them to be relegated, and of course we had the reasons. I know you probably spot the Newport fan in that one with Kieran putting them as high as 13th. Yeah, pretty much. It was a young squad. An unknown. I say an unknown manager. Very well. It was just inexperienced everywhere, and I'm not surprised in which they finished as low as they have. And what scares me now, it looks like they're going to be appointing a coach from Man United, who again is not managed in the Football League. In fact, I don't even think he's managed at all, actually. I could be wrong there. Again, after the season they've had, it's a big risk. It's a big risk. And I feel that they could be in that part again. They've got to get this summer bang on. And I really can't see that from them. And, they've been utterly abysmal, Newport. So, yeah, look, you can't really argue with the correct prediction on that point.
Yeah. I put them 22nd. That was also bang on again for me. One of the few I did get right. I mean, you look at them, I think, looking at it now, so they've got the most goals conceded in the league, and that sort of showed their form, really. I always said if they've won one week, they're going to lose the next. And that was sort of it. We all knew it was going to be an unknown. I thought Nelson Jodham, I didn't know what way to go. I mean, you can't really judge them with how little we sort of know about these managers like him and John Doolan at Accrington. And so I just didn't really know what to expect. And I thought maybe the more experienced managers like a Derek Adams might just get ahead of them. So I put Newport 22nd, below Morecambe, obviously. Again, like I say, I thought the season was an experiment. Fair enough, that's fine. Again, in a poorer League Two, maybe it's worth having that experiment. I wouldn't do it next season. I think they've had that now, and maybe they should probably go for a more experienced manager.
They need to solidify themselves. I think that's the main, because the way they've ended the season in particular was abysmal. I know that Nelson Jardine was sacked, a few weeks before that, but they've got to learn lessons from this year, because I feel like if they're not, and the signs are there at the minute, some of the signs are that I don't feel like they are, and that will be a big indication for next season. It all depends on the business, on what they do. But I get transitional seasons, but there's ways of doing it. You could probably argue Grimsby had a transitional season, but there's different ways to do it. I'm just looking at, because they had a young squad to start with, and by the end of it, pretty much all their best experienced players were gone. You've got to have that blend to it, and I felt like Newport never had that. And with an inexperienced manager, as they had done throughout the season, in this division, it was always going to be one or two ways. That's all. That's what I always got from it. It was either going to be brilliant, or it was going to fall on its face, and it's eventually finished the latter. And to be quite honest, with some of their form, they've probably been lucky that there's been two worse sides than them, actually.
Yeah, once again, it's one of those teams that I've said you're lucky that there's been two teams that have been a lot worse. I think, yeah, you're right. You've got to be careful. I think they've sort of stabilised for a while now, I've thought, and then suddenly slowly slipping down the table, and that's very concerning to me. And I would be very careful about having another inexperienced manager and doing another sort of unknown experiment, if you like, next season. I think they need to get it right. I think they need to once again stabilise and then look.
It's just a big risk. Sorry, but yeah, it's just a big risk. One that I don't think they should be taking after the season of that, because they've clearly tried it this season. It's not worked.
You'd go the opposite way, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they've just got to find a way just to, make up for it. They've lost to Newport, great, that I've always thought, and it just don't feel right. But look, we've dwelled on Newport a fair bit, but I still have question marks for them going into next season. I need to see a good summer, really. Before.
And I'm not confident they'll have a good summer, unfortunately.
No, I'm not at all. But it's one to ask Kieran, I'm sure. 21st in the end was Barrow. He actually finished 16th in the table. Jake got it bang on. Had us 19th. Kieran had them 23rd. Luke 21st. I mean, they put an average position of 21st. They've had good spells. They've had bad spells. They finished the season quite strong, Barrow. Obviously, the start of the season with Stephen Clements, they've ended it with Andy Wing. There's certainly some things to look up to there. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this. What did you put them?
I put them 16th. Surprisingly, I was bang on again. It's one of the few that'll be right, unfortunately. But I mean, yeah, you look at it, Stephen Clements. He did a good job at the start of the season. I think they did. They probably outperformed their expectations, which might have been his fault really, because then when they crash down back to earth, everyone panics and they don't know when they're going to stop.
They tailed off massively, didn't they?
Yeah, they for how they did at the start of the season, it was surprising. If you looked at it,
because they started really well, didn't they? They were like top of the league for
the first
few weeks.
month.
I know it's easy to say first few weeks, of course, but
but they did do really well. They were really impressive. I mean, you look at your guys' predictions at my prediction. If those wins would have mixed with the losses, if you had a win and then a loss, and a win and then a loss, it would have been fine because it would have been around mid-table and you wouldn't have expected anything, and he might still have a job. But because they had a fall from grace, you're suddenly worrying then. And I think it was the right move. And I mean, Andy Wing, what an appointment. What an appointment. And I think they were just building for next season at that point. They knew they weren't going to be relegated. So now it's time to just stop and have a think and see what they can build for next season. And they've done well so far. They've stabilised and they're having a think about next season and then obviously building throughout the summer.
Yeah, there's good early signs there with Andy Wing. I was impressed with the appointment when they made it. He did a cracking job at Solihull. Was a little bit unlucky. But, you know, there's bits in there, a good summer. And, you know, I wouldn't say write them off. Like, there's potential there. I'm excited to see what they do. There's certainly some good bits there to think about with them. They'd certainly be one to look at. I wouldn't say that they'd probably be top end or anything. They'd be right up there. But maybe one just to keep a close eye on because it could be interesting now.
They'd definitely be one of those mid-table teams that might be able to sneak in, I think, like you say.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that if they absolutely nailed it. Right, 20th, Grimsby. Average position 20th. They finished 9th. Yeah, this is a bad one. Missed out on the playoffs on the final day. I had my reasons though. I mean, look, 18th. I mean, look, 19th, 20th. Just before I explain it first, where did you put them?
17th. I was the most optimistic out of us all, but still not great.
I think we had our reasons. We knew that the previous season was dreadful, and I needed to see some sort of improvement. I didn't expect it to be anywhere as quick or as good as it has been. As I said the other week, we've made significant progress as a football club on and off the pitch over the course of the last 12 months. And David Artell's a big reason for that, and so are the players. I think it's pretty much assured that we're not predicting Grimsby 20th next season. They'll certainly be much higher. As we've got, there's a big summer ahead. It's whether we can hold on to some of those key players. It's going to be a difficult ask, but I trust our recruitment. But I did have question marks at the start of the season. I think it was rightly so. Because I think maybe at any other club, as I've mentioned previously quite a few times, Artell could have been out the door with some of those results. Went for a more pragmatic approach, who just got us over the line in the end. But yeah, I was still unsure of him over the summer. Pre-season didn't go. I mean, I've never seen such outrage when we lost to South Shields in the in a pre-season friendly. We lost to York. York might be in our league next year, but no, they've certainly exceeded expectations. And ninth. Yeah, I don't care if it's wrong. Finished ninth. That's not bad. That's not bad. In terms of where we finished, that's not bad. The prediction was awful.
It's one of them. You wouldn't have predicted it, I think. I mean, David Artell, he's a project manager, isn't he? You know that he's got certain skills to be able to build a good side over time. This is his second season with Grimsby. So to do it that quickly is incredible. I think you're still... I wouldn't expect anything brilliant next season. I think you've still got to remember that it is a project. And I think he's going to build a good squad and a good sort of philosophy around the club.
Yeah,
more
but
than anything. And then you look the season after probably to go and try and clinch that promotion.
maybe perhaps. But as I said, the standards have been set now. And really, the next step we can really do, we missed out on the playoffs on the final day. The next step has to be making the playoffs. I think it's got to be. But obviously, we'll delve a bit more into that in the next few weeks. Obviously, it's still relatively early days, but that's where I'd like to think we'd be next season. But in terms of this season, yeah, we've had a brilliant season. There's judging by that, absolutely brilliant season. 19th Cheltenham. They finished, was it 16th? No, 15th in the end. Not terrible. I expected them to maybe struggle a little bit more than what they had done. They've had good spells and bad spells. They've not been overly spectacular at times, though. But I won't say it's any shock, if anything. There's not really too much to say.
No,
really.
I thought they were an all right league. If you had a look at it, or if you showed me Cheltenham's squad, I'd say they're an all right League Two side. There's nothing less, nothing more. And they are an all right League Two side because they finished mid-table. I mean, all season I've called them the most consistent, inconsistent team in the league, and I think it showed. They've got some really good young players, really good, but they just can't get that consistency, and that was their trouble this season. I put them 14th. I was one off, so it was close. And I'm surprised at how, that they've picked up those results. To be fair, I think it's always difficult coming down from League One and trying to stabilise, and I think they've done it well. And then you're looking, well, what can they do next season now?
Yeah, certainly. And I remember when they came down, they made like a lot of signings, didn't they? And obviously Michael Flynn was newly appointed after Darrell Clark left for Barnsley. Yeah, I think there was a lot of change in the summer. There's some good players there, some good quality players there. They'll struggle to keep one or two of them, I believe. Had some good results. They were quite solid at home. They had some pretty good performances and results at home. Yeah, they've just been a steady League Two team, and that was what really, at the point, I did fear for him a little bit, but looking back now, I think it's easy to say now, of course, but it was probably going to be like that. They weren't going to go up. I more fancy them to be in that relegation. In fact, they were far from that. They've just been steady. There's not really too much to say. Just steady, really. Right, 18th, Bromley. Yeah, this is not great. I'm coming to you first, by the way, because you had them to be relegated. I know that looking at that, Kieran had them 21st, Jake had them 22nd, I had them 16th, Luke 17th. So, I'm looking at Kieran, Jake, and obviously yourself, which you had them 23rd. They ended up finishing 11th, which for Bromley standards, I say for their standards, I feel that's a bit mental. For their first season in the EFL football is a magnificent achievement. And for quite a little bit of time with that, they were playoff pushers. I've always stated I never understood the argument that Bromley were going to struggle. If you've seen them in the National League, if you see how Andy Woodman sets his teams up, I always felt they had the players ready for League Two. I didn't think they'd be spectacular. I didn't think they'd do as well as they have done. But they were going to be more than fine. Whatever people said about, that house, what their club is or, the finances they've got, I saw absolutely I didn't see a single reason why they'd go down. I thought they'd be absolutely more than fine. Of course, they've exceeded expectations and it's been a terrific season for them, one to build on. But yeah, I just never understood the argument, really. I just didn't. I thought their team was just ready for League Two. I always thought that. We'll come to you now.
Andy, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I made a great mistake. Yeah, I mean, you look at it, I think they're possibly had less money to spend than other teams in the division. I looked at it, they're near an upcoming side, and I didn't particularly think the signings made up for what I thought they might need. I mean, again, looking at the start of the season, I thought it might be a difficult League Two, and I couldn't really pinpoint any teams I thought would get relegated. I thought everyone was sort of on the same quality, really. which is why I put Accrington and Newport around there for the inexperienced managers. Bromley, yeah, it was a bad one. I mean, yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, yeah, I hadn't watched much of Andy Woodman. I hadn't watched much of Bromley, and that was probably my downfall. Really, I thought they probably needed to make more appointments. On in the squad. But I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong because they're a good side, and I hope they can build on from it now.
That will certainly be their aim, but nonetheless, for their first season, terrific season for them, and a terrific job Andy Woodman's done. There's not really much more. So now Harrogate 17th. I mean, they finished. Where did they finish? They finished 18th, so one off. So pretty good prediction. There was a few times where it looked closer than I think maybe what it should have been. They did. There was around that bottom part for quite a long time. You probably did look at where a few of those results were going to come from. They finished the season quite strong at home, in particular, which eventually got them enough points to get them over the line. And there's not really much more to say. It's we one off what we expected.
Yeah, I put them 19th. So again, one off where I expected, just the other side. I think they're a club, again, sort of similar stature to Bromley in my eyes. They're sort of probably struggling for money, and potentially don't have the finances to invest in the squad like other teams would, like your MK Dons, who are the position below them. And I'm worried about them next season in particular. I think they're on that downward trajectory now. I mean, you look at that last season, they finished 13th. Now it's 18th. You've got to really make sure that they don't fall further down now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you've just got to make sure of it. I think they might be fine, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I think you're probably gonna get that from Harrogate. They just do enough. That they have done enough over these past few seasons, and obviously this will probably be where we predict Harrogate again next year. Might be lower, of course, as I did say, probably too close for comfort at times throughout the season. But they've done enough again, and I think they're pretty much there they're getting there as an established League Two club. They have been in this division for a long time, but it's all eyes on next season and if they can improve on that. But I probably would expect them to be around the same again. Also 16th, yeah. They finished 4th. We've talked about how 15 points clear or whatever it was and all that. We've spoke about that to death. But obviously, in terms of those predictions, massively exceeded expectation. I was trying to figure out what the word was there, but yeah, Paul.
yeah. I mean, they have done. I put them 18th, so yeah. Again, not great predictions. I think you look at it; they were missing Hutchinson, wasn't it, from last season? I think that was who it was. And I think Nathan Lowe surprised a lot of us. Obviously, since he's left, they've fallen down, and it's sort of been a struggle from there. So I think they've can be thankful that Nathan Lowe's helped them. Obviously, he was a tremendous talent and someone we didn't really expect to have such goal scoring form. And it's sad that he left in January, really, because I don't think he's had a shot since.
I still don't get that decision from Stoke. He was clearly flying. Why? But just to bring him back and not to really get a sniff just made zero sense.
Yeah,
and they've suffered as a result.
That's their downfall. But to be fair, still fourth, commendable position for a team that we all predicted to finish in the bottom half.
Absolutely, and very much on course to reach the playoff final as well. 2-0 up in the first leg against Chesterfield. Bring that back to the best Scott. They're in a good position, but we've talked about how they're thrown away. That lead to death. Obviously, fourth where they finished over our predictions of 16th is clearly much better. Swindon 15. Of course, as you can see, if you watch this on YouTube, you get the beautiful picture of Mark Kennedy popping up. Of course, that's not who they finished the season with. That is Ian Holloway. He ended up finishing 12th. And actually, to be fair, as much as they had a horrible start, which cost Kennedy his job, Holloway's come in there and has done terrifically well. And, even in the last 3-4 games, there was even a small sniff that they could have made the playoffs, as unlikely as it was. It was looking bleak at the start of the season, but ultimately very commendable in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I put them 10th. As it'd be 12th, it's not too far off. I really liked Swindon's side at the start of the season. I thought they had a good set of players. He was the one inexperienced manager I sort of just hoped it worked out, because I liked the set of players and I thought they were a good set that someone could make the most of. It wasn't him, but Ian Holloway's come in and done that job. And I think he's shown the players' talents. So to finish 12th, I think if Holloway had come in earlier, maybe they could have finished 10th, and I might have got that one right. But I mean, it's a good side. Ian Holloway now obviously tied down to a new deal, so they'll be hopeful for the future.
So I mean, I did look at that squad. I did see some of the signs in there. They were good signings, and just generally there was a good team. Kennedy clearly wasn't the right appointment. Probably didn't help with the Romans with obviously their ownership, but just such a lift Holloway's given them, and eventually they've done they've done all right in the end, considering where they were. But in terms of prediction wise, not a bad one. Crewe finished 14th. They finished 13th, one off this one. Terrific first half of the season, abysmal second half of the season, and they've pretty much they finished just a place above 14th, finished in 13th in the end. Jake got it bang on. Luke Adams finished 18th. But yeah, not really much more to say. I think Lee, I think I need to see a big summer from Crewe. And I think Lee Bell, I think there's a fair bit of pressure on him, because the way that the way they have been second half of the season, that their drop off has been quite alarming. I think there has been circumstances for it, but it was just a bit unacceptable, really. And eventually they finished nowhere near the playoffs, and they've pretty much finished where we eventually, judging by that, where we thought they'd be. Yeah,
I mean, I've always liked Lee Bell. I think he's a brilliant manager. And he showed it last season. They finished 6th. They finished inside the playoffs. I didn't even think they were going to finish inside the playoffs this season. I put them 9th. I thought they'd be knocking on the door, but not quite reaching it this season. Like you say, not a great end to the season at all. And it sort of cost them that playoff place. I still like Lee Bell. I think potentially his time's coming to an end at Crewe, depending on the start of next season. But I don't doubt that he'll do well at another League Two club, to be honest. I think it might just be the wrong relationship at that time. And maybe he'll join another League Two club and do even better.
Yeah, perhaps, like I said, I've always said I've liked him, but yeah, it's been, you can't have that drop off, really. I just don't think you can. As much goodwill as I think he has, it seems a very likable bloke. I think that only gets you so far. He says that he knows what they need to do in the summer. I need to see it, to be honest. It's been nowhere near good enough the second half of the season. I think, like I said, circumstances have took place, but I do think quite a lot of it has come down to him with how he sets his teams up. But yeah, look, that's for. Yeah, I need to see much better from Crewe, to be honest. But that's why they've been pretty much, in terms of that, they're pretty much where we predicted them. Fleetwood finished 13th. We predicted them 13th. They finished 14th. Again, one off if we just switched Crewe Fleetwood, which is really annoying. Charlie Adams started the season. They're ending it with Pete Wild. Mid-table for them. What we expected. Certainly big things heading into next season with Pete Wild. That's for sure.
Yeah, I put them 8th. I was slightly more hopeful. I think they've got a good squad. I really like their squad. I really like their setup, same as Crewe. but they just couldn't get the most out of it at the start of the season. Similar story to Barrow. Such manager, I think it's a much better appointment, suits them much better. But at that stage in the season, they knew they weren't going down. They knew they probably needed time for the managers to settle in. This season was probably over and done with, so they could just plan and work towards next season. I think that's what Pete Wild's done. So to maintain a 14th place, I don't think that's bad at all. And I mean, they're going to be hoping to do better next season.
Yeah, and I truly believe they will. I really wasn't sure on Charlie Adam. I think that was my big thing about that. You see, the squad was there. It's a good enough squad. It was certainly good enough to be challenging top end. Well, challenging top end. Yeah, I'd probably go as far as say as that. There's some good players in that squad, but I was always unsure in him. Whereas with Pete Wild, I won't have that problem. I don't think. Yeah, I think they'll be a bit better next year. Safe to say. Salford, we predicted them to finish 12th. They ended up finishing 8th. If we look at it by that, not bad. Again, another side missed out on the playoffs on the final day. We've seen the news the other day about their takeover and some more money being pumped into the club there, which they could be a lot more dangerous next season. We'll have to see. It's one in which I'm keeping a close eye on because it could be a big summer over there. But yeah, certainly an improvement for the previous season. It's not. Jake had them ninth for finished 8th. If you're looking at that, I don't think it's bad.
No, I don't think it's bad at all. I mean, I put them in 20th. I thought they'd match last season's result, which I mean, it hasn't gone that way really. I think there's two teams in this league, Salford being one of them, where you always expect so much and they just never seem to deliver. And every time I predict them to be in the playoffs or higher, and so I've listened now and I decided they're not going to finish in the playoffs. Of course, they finished one place off it this season, which is insane. I've always had high hopes for Salford, and they've never delivered it. And so I was pessimistic this season with 20th. And I mean, I like Carl Robinson. I think he's done a good job, and I had full hope that he would do a good job. It's just for some reason that side never seemed to click. But I think he's got them to click now, and so there's always looking upwards.
Yeah, I think I was expecting more of a steady season for Salford, but in the end, just 1 point off the playoffs for them. It's probably good. It does go down as a success. But yeah, next season, is there another? I feel like I'm saying it a lot. They're a side I'm interested to see this summer. Obviously, with that takeover, they could do some damage if they really wanted to. We predicted Bradford City to finish 11th. They went up automatically in 3rd. I think we have our reasons for it. I've always, I've said quite a few times. I think Bradford had been that team. They've been in League Two for far too long. And to be honest, other than the year that they've made the playoffs, they hadn't really done a great deal. They've always been very average, mid-table. I didn't expect them to do as well as they had done. I'm glad to see them that they've done well as they have done. Graham Alexandra has done a terrific job to get them up. The second half of the season, they were really strong. But yeah, I didn't expect them to go up. Saying that, I'm not sure when I ever expected Bradford to go up because it just felt like they were just stuck there, and I didn't really see much as to where or what they do. But yeah, they've gone up automatically.
Yeah, I mean, you've put it exactly the same. Again, these are the other side that I was talking about, where I've always predicted them to finish in that playoff spot or higher. They're such a big team that they should go up, really. There's no question about it. And so I was pessimistic about them as well. I put them 12th. And of course, this is the season they go up automatically. But they've got a good side, haven't they? They've got a good side. There's no denying that. It's just when it was going to click for them. I was unsure on Graham Alexander. To be fair, at the start, he's had success in the past, I know, but I don't know, just something didn't feel right for me. But I mean, he's got it absolutely spot on. The signings in January were spot on. I think everything seemed to work well. I mean, you can't complain, can you? They deserve it. They had an incredible run at home midway through the season.
Ended by Tranmere.
Well, exactly, yeah. Ended by us, but that can't be helped. Getting beaten by the best, or the worst at that time. But they are a good side, and they deserve to go up. The city of Bradford deserves to go up. They deserve some celebration for everything they've gone through, and I think finally that football club is on the right trajectory now, and they've got to be looking upwards. And I mean, you look at what Stockport and Wrexham have done. Why can't Bradford do the same now?
Absolutely, yeah. But look, they've flattered to the sea for a long, long time, but they've nailed it. They've nailed it this year, and they've got their rewards for it. But yeah, one we certainly got wrong. 10th, AFC Wimbledon finished in the playoffs in 5th, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
I think looking at Luke 13th, because either put them 23rd if you let's be honest, I'm surprised he didn't put them 23rd. Jake 11th had them 9th. I thought they'd be there or thereabouts. I thought there were better sides that made the playoffs. They have made it. I think they made it quite difficult for themselves near the end. They're in a good position currently at the minute in the semi-final. One up against Notts County. They're in a very strong position heading into the second leg at their place. Yeah, certainly one for the better for there. Of course, not always plain sailing, but let's be honest, you're not going to get that with any team.
Yeah. I put them 15th, which is a long way off, but I just wasn't ever convinced with Johnny Jackson, really, if I'm honest. I just wasn't convinced, and I think I see holes in their side. I mean, Matty Stevens has obviously had a brilliant season, but he sort of petered off towards the end of it, and so have Wimbledon. And they've just about stayed in the playoffs. But yeah, it's one of them sides. I'm unsure if they go up how they'll do next season, to be honest. I'm still not totally convinced, which is with a few teams in this league, to be fair. But they've done really well to get to 5th place, and obviously they're only looking upwards, and they've got a good chance of getting promoted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we looked at it, I think they finished like the previous season, like something like 9th, 10th, or something like that. It was obviously really, I think probably as a club, can they go that next step further? And they've achieved that. I don't think we necessarily predicted them to do it. Clearly not. But there's things are good at, like defensively, they're excellent. Going forward is certainly a weak point, but like I said, they've done enough to get into the playoffs in the end, and they're 90 minutes away from a trip to Wembley. So, but of course, they won't want to rest on that. They'll want to go up, and there's certainly a chance and certainly a good position to. So, yeah, certainly one we got wrong. That one. 9th, Colchester actually finished 10th. Yeah, good prediction all around. Kieran had them 14th, which I thought was a little bit low. I thought the Danny Cowley factor was probably the big one that swayed it for me. Some good players coming in the door. Jack Payne's had an excellent season. A couple of others. Warren Edwards is a player that I really like. I never thought I'd say that after I saw him play for Grimsby in, was it 2020? But yeah, they'll come again next year. They look like there's an American takeover that's close to completion there. Could be a big summer for them, and I expect them to be probably at least go that step further and at least make the playoffs. There's something to look forward to at Colchester, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, I put them 3rd, and it's because of everything you've said. I really like the Carleys. I think they're brilliant managers, and I think they do a really good job at the club. They've had that time sort of to build a project, and I think they were always on that upward trajectory. I think you look at players like Lyle Taylor came in. He's had a rocky few seasons, but he'd worked with Carleys before, and I thought that might be a pressing factor for why he might be in form this season, and he might be a good scorer for them. And I mean, they have had a good season, going from 22nd to 10th. It's a really good season for them. Don't get me wrong. Not quite where I thought it would be, but you usually always have those teams that sort of sneak into that playoffs, sneak into that automatics that probably should be around about mid-table, and it's usually those project teams that are 1 year, 2 years maybe away from climbing to that playoff spot, but they just have a really good season. And I thought that might be Colchester this year. It almost was. Let's not forget that it almost was with where they were, with 5 games to go. But they've just sort of petered off, and I mean, 10th is still, like I say, a really commendable position.
Yeah, I think for where they have done, because they've struggled in League Two for quite a fair bit of time. I mean, especially going off you putting them third, I thought that was always a big jump. I didn't think playoffs would be on the rounds of impossible, and they came close up until the last few games where I think a couple of injuries have hit and they just sort of ran out of steam. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It signifies the progress they have made. I think if you ask any Colchester fan, I think they'll be very pleased in what they have done this season. The foundations have been set, and there's big things.
They're not in that relegation battle.
Yeah, it certainly makes a nice change because they came very close last year, actually. But yeah, they've done very well for themselves, and they'll probably be certainly there or thereabouts again come next season. I'm pretty confident with that now that Danny Kelly's had that first full season. There's a lot of good stuff happening over there. Tranmere Rovers 8th.
We can figure this.
Yeah, we're not skipping past this one. We predicted them to finish 8th. You had them in the playoffs, I believe. Checks the table. They finished 20th. Was far from convincing up until quite near the end. Certainly under Nigel Adkins' reign, as you can see in that picture. Of course, getting rid of him was the best thing you did. Bringing in Andy Crosby, and he's got you some good results near the end, which has got you over the line. And to be fair, you stayed up pretty comfortably in the end, but it certainly looked bleak. I think we probably looked at it at the start of the season was more of the name, and I think that's where we went wrong.
Well, you look at the name of Nigel Adkins, and you instantly go, well, he's one of the most respected managers in the league, let's say, or has one of the biggest reputations. And even you look at the end of last season, he was in good form when we appointed him permanently. But for one reason or another, whatever it is, we won't have the time to go into it, but whatever it may be, it didn't work, and it really didn't work. And then obviously the transition to Andy Crosby, and suddenly everything's brilliant. And it was night and day, and it happened within a night and a day, really. It was that quick. We just instantly turned on a switch, and we were good to go. Not quite fifth place. Well, we were playoff form with Andy Crosby. We were in the playoff form, if you will, if we carried on those 13 games for the rest of the season, but we didn't quite manage it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next season. Andy Crosby is a really good manager, and I want him to manage in League Two next season. Whether it is with us or not, who knows? But he deserves the shot. He's a brilliant manager, and a brilliant person, an honest person. And I think, he really deserves the shot, wherever that may be.
Yeah, and I've always said it probably should be with you. He more than deserves it for the job he's done there. But it was clear to see that the problem was the manager. I think in hindsight, I wish I did look at your squad a little bit more, because the one glaring thing that I pretty much know or just remember straight away was the lack of attacking quality. I feel the lack of creativity.
I always assumed we'd get one, because I did mine before, obviously, transfer window ended, and a month after, whatever it was, a few weeks after the season started. And so I always assumed that we would get one.
And it just never happened, did it?
No.
I know Amari Patrick can do one or two things, but other than that, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I mean, we know that Josh Holtz can do stuff, but he was pretty much non-existent under Nigel Adkins, wasn't he? So,
he was gone. He wasn't allowed in the stadium, I don't think. So
yeah,
I mean, it's ridiculous, but we got over it, and then obviously I had all good times with Andy Crosby.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you've done more than enough to stay up, but we got this one way wrong, and certainly, well, it won't be a season; it'll be long living in the memory. Poor season on the whole. Let's call it a spade. Poor seasons for one team. Let's have a look at another one. Carlisle. We predicted them to finish 7th. They were relegated. Yeah.
I put them 13th. I was lower than you guys, but I still wasn't. wasn't anywhere near.
Yeah, I mean, where do you begin with them? It's just been a car crash of a season. 3 managers, Paul Simpson was sacked pretty much right after the transfer window, which was stupid. Mike Williamson was clearly I didn't think was the right appointment at the time, and that proved to be, because it's a complete different style and the way he tried to implement it. It was clear that he didn't have the players to do it, but he still persisted with it. Signed a whole new team in January, and then results hadn't picked up, and they got rid of him. Was it just before, like a day before the transfer window shut, or it was like a day after, or something like that?
Yeah.
And Mark Hughes, they got some good results out of Mark Hughes, but it was just too little, too late. But poor recruitment, poor decisions. A lot of money that was spent on rubbish, really, and then they ultimately found themselves in that position, back-to-back relegations, and they're in the National League next year. And that was after we all had high hopes for Carlisle, because the squad on paper looked really good, but yeah, I mean, if you're making decisions like that, if you've been run like that quite poorly throughout, I know that their owners do have the best intentions at heart. They're not like in it, they're just like in it for the money or anything like that. I do generally believe they do. Ultimately, I think big decisions they've got horribly wrong, and that's what's cost them.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with you. Like say, you look at the owners, the contracts they're paying players in terms of the length and also the amount of players. You can't say that they've not got the club at heart. They're just doing all the wrong decisions. They're maybe not as experienced as they need to be in those decisions. Obviously, the timings of the sackings, you either give Paul Simpson enough time or you sack him before the last season ends. And then again, you either give Williamson the January, the rest of the season, or you don't give him the January window. It was just the wrong times for both seconds, and I think that really cost them. They're a good side. They've got a really good squad, and it is amazing to see that they're struggling that badly, or that they were struggling that badly. And it's shocking, really. But they are where they are, and we won't see them next season.
Yeah, I mean, I saw no indication that this would happen either. I think that's probably the more shocking thing about it. But yeah, spending loads of money doesn't always guarantee success. I think it's that and Forest Green, who went down the previous year. There was another side that spent loads and went down probably a little bit more
back to back as well.
Yeah, I mean, Carlisle did put up a good effort near the end, but just too little, too late. I think the best thing they could certainly hope for, I think they could certainly do a lot worse than Mark Hughes in our league. I think they've got to try and keep him if they can, to give him the best chance. But I don't think we'll be seeing them for a little bit. I think we'll probably see them much quicker than what Morecambe are at the minute. That's certainly one thing to say. But yeah, a disastrous season for them on all accounts. Chesterfield, we predicted to finish 6th. They finished 7th in the end, creeping into the playoffs on the final day. I've always been quite critical of Chesterfield this season because this is what I thought that I fully expected from them, and they have made the playoffs, and can't really complain with that.
No, I don't think there's much for us to say. I put them 7th. They finished 7th. Yeah, they've done what they expected. They're a decent side. Obviously, they came up last season, but we all knew that they were going to do well. Teams in the National League. This is completely going against everything I said about Bromley, but teams in the National League who come up tend to do well in the first season. And Chesterfield, we all thought had the backing of it, and had a really good experienced manager at League Two level as well. And they were probably way too good for the National League and only came up this time because of the Wrexhams and the Stockports of the world. And so to see them doing so well, yeah, it's expected, but it's good to see.
Yeah, because they absolutely breezed through that National League season, didn't they? When it was just them. Look, good squad, good manager. They've got some good backing between them. They've got a lot of work to do to turn around a 2-goal deficit at Walsall, but they'll certainly look to come again next season. They'll probably be there or thereabouts again. So yeah, there's not really too much you can say with that. It's what I expected them to be, and that's what they've pretty much done. Gillingham, we predicted them to finish 5th. They finished 17th. I think things are starting to look up a little bit now under Gareth Ainsworth, but I've always said that Gillingham are just that side that have always flattered to deceive every time. I expected a lot more than what they had done this season. I really liked the appointment of Mark Bonham when they made it. But again, they haven't scored enough goals. Again, they don't really concede a lot, but it's more they're scoring goals. And they went on that horrendous run where they didn't win for about, 2.5, 3 months or something like that. They picked it up near the end of the season, quite a few draws. And you probably think that they'll spend again. But in terms of, expectations or what we thought compared to where they finished, miles off the mark.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, that form's always going to kill you. You're never going to succeed if you've got form like that. I put them 11th, less than you guys. I didn't think they had a chance of the playoffs. I wasn't convinced about their finishing qualities, to be honest. But I didn't think they'd be as low down as 17th. Another one, when you go through 3 managers in a season, you can't have that consistency. You can't have that connection with the squad. You're always going to struggle. And that's what's happened, really. I agree with you. I think Gareth Ainsworth is going to turn it around for them. I don't think it's going to be a quick process. But again, I think it's one of those where manager sackings have ultimately cost them. Whether it's right or wrong to sack the manager, ultimately going through 3 managers in the season, you're never going to get success.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going through 3, I totally forgot that John Coleman was there. Actually,
Yeah,
that probably explains how well that went. But yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to say. Judging by what we thought, they were quite a way off it. That's put that politely. Doncaster Rovers, we predicted them to finish 4th. They ended up winning the league. So I expected them to be in the promotion hunt one way or another. As you can see, Kieran and myself actually predicted them to finish 3rd in the automatic places. Yeah, I think I always expected them to be in this conversation. They were, and they were the ones that actually went and won the league. Won? I don't know what I was trying to say there. So yeah, that's
yeah. I mean, I put them 4th, so I was exactly the same as the group there. I've just really impressed me this season. I mean, you look at it, 5 games to go. I was the only one that would say Doncaster would win the league. So to go from saying they're going to finish 4th to then being the only one predicting that, they really have surprised me and impressed me. I think Grant McCann especially. I knew he was a good manager, but I didn't know he was that good. He really impressed me this season. And then you look at the likes of Rob Street. They always do well in that January transfer window, don't they? And he was another example, and I think it's what they needed to boost that attacking line. I mean, look, they've got the job done and they're certainly enjoying themselves now. If you've seen it on social media, they are having a good time at the moment, and they deserve it.
Somebody should probably give a nudge to Joe Sabara to have a little bit of sort of stuff I've seen from him.
Yeah, he's having a good time, but they deserve it because I mean, look at them; they finished top, and I don't think many people predicted that, and it's fully deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, loads of players have had terrific seasons. Luke Morley in particular, obviously the standout some season he's had. I'd probably say he's been the League Two's best player this season by a fair distance. He's that good. And Grant McCann is clearly that good of a manager, and they've turned it up right when they needed to, and they've got over the line in the end. So full credit to them on a terrific season. Notts County, we had them to finish 3rd. They're in the playoffs. They finished 6th. Yeah, I think, again, we expected Notts County to be in this promotion hunt. I thought they'd have given top 3 a better go than what they have done, truth be told. I'm currently in a position now in which I'm just not sure on Stuart Maynard. I don't think I really have, to be honest. Although I did have them to finish 4th and I came in 6th there. But I've got a lot of questions on him still. But again, I expected them to be in and around that, and I guess they were. They could have finished. There was a chance they could have finished 3rd on the final day, actually, but it was unlikely that it wouldn't have happened anyway with Bradford winning. But yeah, not the worst prediction in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted them 6th, so again, bang on for me. And like I say, that one thing that was, I couldn't look past was the manager. I just wasn't convinced. Because I think they've got a really good squad. I mean, at the time they had Dan Crowley, which was brilliant. Obviously, not anymore. And they had some really good players. It was Jody Jones still there. They've got, Jata. What a striker he is. I know that people criticise the chances that he's missed, but if you're having that many chances, you're going to score. And it's his credit that he's got into those chances. And I really like him as a striker. And I'm happy to take him in the summer because I really like him as a striker. And I think it's what they need. And they've got a good squad, but it's slightly disappointing at times. And you look slightly towards the manager, I think, as a place to improve. I think they've got a really good squad, a squad that deserves to go up. But
I think the one thing I'm pointing out at this point at time, certainly back end of the season, they've been quite abysmal actually.
yeah,
Past last 6 games of regular season, have won 1, lost 4 of them. I did watch them in a few games. I thought they were appalling, to be honest. And I didn't think much of them against Wimbledon the other night. And
they didn't inspire any confidence, I don't think.
They've not done for me for a while.
No,
Thinking about
it. If it carries on, it falls on one man, unfortunately for me.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think Stuart Maynard's a good manager, but just not right.
I'm just not sure if he's a Notts County manager.
No, or not that level yet, anyway.
Yeah, with the pressure and the expectation there. Port Vale finished second. We predicted them to finish second. Perfect prediction. And of course, that's one that's ended in promotion. I expected them to finish top 3. I think there was no excuses. Darren Moore's the gaffer, the money they've spent, the players they've got, and they've gone and done that.
Yeah, I predicted them second, exact same. I echo everything you've said. They spent well. They made sure that they were going to get out of this division the first time. And they've done it. And fair play to them. I think they had a really good run. Shaky at times, and I think I didn't expect that in a way. I thought the team that I've put top and the team that we've all put top, the one that we've missed out so far, I thought it would be one of those two that would go on a really good run and they would be well and truly clear of the rest of the pack. And they haven't done so. I've been slightly disappointed with them. It's insane to say. But to get second and to get promoted, that's all that matters at the end of the day. You can't ultimately complain at that result. They'll be happy. They won't care because they're going up, and fair play to them. It's just about building that now, and they've got good owners, and I think they've got a good stability now. Owners, manager, players that they've retained. And I think, they're looking up, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not turning down a promotion, and that's what they've done. Not really too much to say. Yeah, all the best in League One to them. Right, top spot. This some teams have caught us out. There'd have been quite a lot of teams that have caught a few people out. Carlisle, I think Tranmere might have caught 1 or 2 out, but not as bad as I don't think as MK Dons. The overriding favourite to go and absolutely dominate the league at the start of the season. The start of the season under Mike Williamson. They then have Scott Lindsay. They've ended it with Paul Warne. They finished 19th, and they were utterly abysmal for quite a large period. I think in terms of the quality of the squad, they've got good names. I'm not sure if that made a good team. That's pretty much the big part from that. But ultimately, absolutely miles off where we all expected them to be, and it was just a terrible season. But of course, other than Luke, we all don't like MK, do we? So it's great to see. Couldn't happen to a nicer club.
I forget calling them good players. I think they're brilliant players. I think they're players that shouldn't be in this division, let alone 19th in this division. And that's a huge, huge question marks on why on earth they're not performing as they should be. Mike Williamson, I still believe is a good manager. He did really well at Gateshead. And he's got a good philosophy, but it just hasn't worked this season. He's had a horrendous season.
It had taken his stock a massive hit.
Yeah,
Massive hit.
I really don't know where he goes
Once
now.
upon a time, he was. I remember him at Gateshead. He was the most sought after manager I can remember for quite a large period of time.
Exactly.
I wanted Mike Williamson. He sacked Paul Hurst, by the way.
Well, yeah,
He was I wanted.
it shows why certain managers and players should stay at the division and keep working, I guess, and not risk taking that leap at times. But it's, yeah, I feel bad for him. He's a good manager. He clearly is. He's shown it before, but it's just really not worked out. And it's not worked out for MK Dons. You know, for me, he was average at MK Dons. I don't think he impressed too much, but I don't think he was horrendous either. But then, obviously, for an MK Dons team, the team that they had, a super team in League Two, you can't just have okay. You've got to be the best of the best. And he wasn't, so we have to go. Fair enough. But they just never got it right. I mean, Scott Lindsay, what an appointment. if you're looking for a manager, once again, you know, I'd bet your hand off for Scott Lindsay. 100%. Same with the squad that they've got, but again, it didn't work, and for various reasons. And you've really got to look at it as an MK Dons fan, because it is really concerning now. And where you go from here, because you've got a really good team, but they're not playing together, they're not working, and then you've not really got a decision on a manager either that works. You've gone for one side of things, you've gone for the other side, and nothing's worked. And it's, how do you get out of that slump, really? It'll be interesting to see, but really, really disappointing for MK Dons this season.
But I'm also looking at it now. I can pretty much echo what you said about this. I'm amazed Scott Lindsay didn't work. I'm really amazed it didn't work. It was quite sad to see him not work, but obviously he's back at Crawley now. You know, the football that I think Williamson and Lindsay play sort of similar. It's what MK Dons have been after for a long time. They've clearly changed that. They've gone for something different now, a little bit more, say, sort of pragmatic, but more solidified approach in Paul Warne. But it's proved that he's won it in the past. He's been he's very successful at League One. I think, was it 4 promotions out of League One, and that's in the league above. So
I think as always, you look at Williamson and Lindsay. Yes, they're similar styles, but they're also hugely different personalities as well.
Yeah, true.
So you keep that consistency in the football pitch, but if the personality is the issue, you know, it's still not worked. But yeah, I don't know where they go now. I mean, Paul Warne, what a signer.
But yeah, I do think a lot of the blame does have to go to the players, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Even though they've gone through, they're another side that have gone through 3 managers, but I really like the Paul Warne appointment, and if he can't get them up, I don't think anyone can, truth be told.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's pretty much it. I did say we'll look at yours really quick. There's yours in full if you're watching it on YouTube.
Close your eyes.
Yeah. You're just hoping I just get rid of them very quickly.
Yeah. So you're going to keep that up now.
Yeah, for a few more seconds. In fact, I might do the outro with that. Yeah, good point. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for watching, of course. Let us know what you thought. I thought, like I said, there's some good shouts in there. You know, there was quite a few correct predictions. There was quite a few of them which were 1 or 2 off. Not like I said, not many in which I thought were awful, truth be told. Of course, there's 1 or 2 in there that just took the biscuit, but not bad at all. But let us know what you thought. We'll be back at the weekend for when we look back at the League Two semi-finals for the second legs of the 2 ties. And we'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for watching, listening. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Make sure you download the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.